Okay, welcome to Jump Math. This is grade 6 book 2 and we're looking at page 93, formulas for tables. Let's get right into it. It says for number 1, use the gap to complete the table. I'm just going to grab another color here. So for this one we started with a gap that's plus 2 and we simply add 3 plus 2 and that gives us 5. We keep going down the table and we get 5, 7, 9. Do the same for C. Starting at 15 minus 3, so that gives us 12. And then we do the gap again, minus 3 is 9, minus 3 again is 6. All right. Moving on, try to do B and D there. Question 2, it says use the rule to fill in the table. Find the gap between the outputs. So the rule is up here. Multiply by 3 and then add 1. So if I take the input and multiply by 3, that's going to give me 3, 6, 9, and 12. And then if I add 1 after that for each of these, what will that give me? 4, 7, 10, 13. And what is my gap over here? My gap happens to be plus 3, plus 3, and plus 3. So in this case, my gap is 3 or plus 3. So they can sometimes go up or down, depending if you're adding or subtracting. Let's try this one here. Multiply by 2 and add 5. So multiplying by 2 for each of these, I would have 2, 4, 6, 8. And now I'm going to add 5 for each of them. So plus 5 for each of those. And what do we get? We get 7, 9, 11, and 13. And what am what's the gap for each of those? 7, 9, 11, 13. The gap for each of those is plus 2. So we can write that in there. So scrolling down just a little bit, we see that the gap is positive 2. So it says B, compare the gap and the rule for each table in part A. What do you notice? Hopefully something jumps out to you, and I've tried to color code it as well. What do you notice? Let's move on. So on page 94, it has some instructions, 4 steps to find the rule for how to get the output from the input. So let's look at this table. It says find the gap between the numbers in the output column. So the first step is to find this part. 5, 8, 11, the gap is 3. Step 2, multiply each input by the gap. So we're going to take the inputs right here and go times 3 for each of them. Because the gap was 3, we're going to multiply by 3. So we get 3, 6, 9 as a result. Step 3 is then what must you add or subtract to each number to get to the second column output? So what do we have to do to 3 to get to 5, 6 to get to 8, and 9 to get to 11? In all of those, it's add 2. Now, step 4 is write the rule for the table. The rule is multiply the input by 3, then add 2. So the gap is showing us what we're multiplying by, and then we're having to look and say, how do I have to change that result of n times the gap? How do I have to change that to get it to be the output? And in this case, it's add 2. So the full rule, multiply by 3, add 2. Let's do a couple together. So for 3a, it says use the steps above to find the rule. So the first thing is find the gap. In this case, it's plus 4. So now I'm going to take n times the gap, or times 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. And so I fill that in. Now the third step is to compare how do I change the answer of n times the gap to the output. Well, you can see the output is larger. How much larger? Plus 7. 4 plus 7 is 11. Does that work for 8 to 15 and 12 to 19? The answer is yes. So I add 7 or plus 7. So my rule at the end of this is, and I'm going to change colors again so you can see that, multiply by 4, then add 7. Let's take a look at C, and then you can try and do B and D on your own. In this case, where do we start? We start over here. What is the gap? 2 to 5, that's plus 3. 5 to 8, again, plus 3. So now I'm going to go n times the gap. In this case, it's 3. What's 1 times 3? 3. 2 times 3, 6. 3 times 3, 9. And now I'm going to compare, how do I get 3 to be 2, 6 to be 5, and 9 to be 8? How much do I have to subtract to make that true? I have to subtract 1. So my rule for this then is multiply by whatever my gap is, 3, then subtract 1. So there's the rule. See if you can do the other two, and let's move on. Question 4 is a repeat of number 3, so just try that out. And again, you're just counting the blocks here. So for figure 3, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'd say 5 there. So see if you can figure out the formula from that. Let's look at number 5. They've done A for us. So they've taken this, they've found the gap is 5, and then they check from the gap to the output. What do we have to do? We have to minus 3. So the formula in the end is the gap times the term number, or the input, which is this, minus 3. So let's do this for C. Let's see if we can figure it out together. Where do we start again? We always start at the gap. What is the gap here? Happens to be 4, or plus 4. So my formula at the beginning of it is going to be 4n, 4 times the input number. Let's do that, 4 times the input number. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16. How does 4 become 3, or 8 become 7, or 12 become 11, or 16 become 15? How does that happen? We have to take away 1. And so now we found the formula. So it says down here in the gray, these are the little teaching sections. Once you know the gap, you really only need to see how the first term compares to the gap in order to find the formula. So in question 5a, the gap is 5, and the first output is 2. So the formula is 5n minus 3. Let's use this rule for question 6. So let's look at 6a. It says, find the gaps, then write the formula. So 3 to 5 is plus 2, right? And these are all plus 2. So now I know the first part of my formula is 2n. Well, what's 2 times 3 here? Or 2 times 1, rather. Because this is the first term. So I would say 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1. And see if that works for the second term. The second term is 5, so I'd say 2 times 2 plus 1. 3 times 2 plus 1 for the 7, and it works. That's our formula. Okay? How about this? 9 to 20. Well, that's 11. 20 to 31, again 11. 31 to 42, again 11. So my formula is going to be 11n, and then how do I get the first term, if I put a 1 for the n, to be 9? I'd have to subtract 2. So each time I'm going, whatever the term number is the n, and then subtract 2 after I multiply by 11. Okay, see if you can figure out C, D, and E. Some challenges there. And this is counting toothpicks. So my suggestion is start with a table or just a list like this, and figure out how many toothpicks are in each figure, and then figure out the formula. And to find the 30th figure, you'd have to put 30 in for the n in your formula. All right, I hope that helps.